Well, hello again, and thanks for this opportunity to talk about the Dharma. This is November 2nd, and just a year ago, my stepson, Max, was murdered in Ecuador. I knew I wouldn't get through this without crying, but I just want to share some information about how I used the Dharma to meet this sad thing. So I decided I better read, because if I just talked, I might not get through my emotions. So I wrote this when Venerable Chidren asked for us to think about the verses of the 37 verses of Bodhisattva practice, and so I wrote something on verse 24. And the verse says, all forms of suffering are like a child's death in a dream, holding illusory appearances to be true makes us weary. Therefore, when you meet disagreeable circumstances, see them as illusory. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. So I'm just going to read what I wrote. I was just sitting down to breakfast a year ago, and my phone rang. It was Ellen, and she asked a tight-voiced question, "Are you sitting down?" I knew it couldn't be good news. Max has been shot and killed in Ecuador, she said. A bolt of energy ran through me, and it felt like the ground dropped away. So I did sit down. Ellen is Max's mom, and I am his stepmom. We shared raising him. We raised him, my son Sam and his sister Elka, together for 18 years. Max almost reached 23 years old. From the age of 16, he traveled at least once a year to Ecuador to spend time with a family he had met during a cultural enrichment program. He loved Ecuador and the people he met there, and he wanted to move there at least part of his life. This verse 24 by Togme Sampo points to a way out of suffering, even in this kind of very intense situation. Shortly after Max's death, I went into a winter silent retreat, and often my meditations turned to the violence. It seemed so unreal, like a dream. It was so unexpected. Max wasn't a violent kid. He rarely caused problems for anyone. He was never on drugs. He was intense, nervous, helpful, kind, very bright, and very funny. And of course, I was going through many emotions, still am, sadness, fear, denial, anger, and despair. So I began to look for ways to deal with the waves of tangled feelings and thoughts, because they just seemed to exhaust me and lead in circles, not really doing any good for anyone. One of the most helpful thoughts was that many, many parents in this world lose their sons to violence. I have two friends who have lost their sons to gang shootings, and there are many who have lost their sons to wars and other harsh accidents. And I began to connect in my mind and my heart with all those parents, just to share our sadness and send them light and healing. And this sense of connection, of joining in a bigger pain and loss, started to loosen some of the knots. And then I began to think really long and hard about the parents of the young man who killed Max, who's now in prison. And I thought about their pain and fear and their dreams for their son. And I realized how much harder it would be to be those parents, actually. If you had to choose, would you want the pain of losing a son or having a son in prison who's possibly killed someone? Both of them are just extreme sufferings. So I began to bring them into all of the meditations and purifications along with their son, and just pour this healing light down onto everyone. Then I realized, reading this verse by Togme Sampo, that I think in doing this, we end up working with an aspect of the lack of inherent existence and the dreamlike state of our lives, because we connect with the pervasive interdependence of everything. There are just infinite causes and conditions leading to this kind of a sad ending to a short life. And I started to look at karma, and the karma of all of us affected by this, and Max's karma, and how this was an unfolding for him in this life of possible harms he had done in his past lives. So I just deeply set an intention that all the negative aspects surrounding this be purified, and that they be completely cleared away by his early death, so he'll be free of it. And now when I read this verse, it kind of haunts me, this suffering like a child's death in a dream, because I don't really understand the emptiness of life much at all. Life seems very solid to me. But what I do understand is that it is a complex, interdependent unfolding, and there is some relief in holding it as though it is like a death in a dream. And from my teachers, I know that how I meet the situation becomes part of the dream, and that affects everyone. So I have set a motivation to meet this tragedy with whatever grace, wisdom, and loving kindness I can for everyone involved, and to think over and over of how I could help turn this suffering into something meaningful. And I can do that by working on my own mind and heart. So I make an aspiration to be like the Buddha Shakyamuni, who took on Angulimala, who Venerable Jampel referred to yesterday, the murderer of 999 people. And Buddha took Angulimala as his disciple, and Angulimala became a really wonderful disciple. So if I ever meet such a person, one who has murdered, and if we believe in beginningless lives, we've all done that, then I would like to understand the meeting to be like a dream. And in that dream, I would like to act with great understanding and compassion.